Well, it may have been the greatest product launch in the history of America. Ladies and gentlemen, the Democratic Party would like to present to you the 2020 Edsel. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Hello? Is it? Hello? Hello? What do you mean the car's on fire? We've been having so much fun today that whatever structure I may have originally had for this episode has essentially fallen apart because we've talked about so many things in so many places. I'm just going to kind of throw some spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Whittle here with Steve Green and Scott on this very serious and somber day. Actually, you know what? I really should actually pay more attention to what's her name?
Jen Rubin.
No.
No? That could be anybody on the news.
No. The majority, the Speaker of the
Nancy
House.
Pelosi.
Yeah.
That's it. Because this is a solemn day, a sad and solemn day in our nation's history, when votes in Iowa weren't counted because they went with an app. Scotty, I'm just going around the horn here because it's an embarrassment of riches. One of the people apparently running in the New Hampshire primary, and who in fact came in first in New Hampshire or second or conceivably.
Are you talking about Iowa or
fourth.
New Hampshire?
I don't care. Let's go with Iowa for the sake of the argument.
Okay.
For the sake of the argument, let's go with Iowa. One of the guys who was running in the Iowa caucuses who came in first or perhaps second or maybe third and conceivably fourth was Joe Biden. And I noticed this about Joe Biden's campaign. First of all, Barack Obama, whose messaging in 2008 was just insanely good. I covered in iconography, just how astonishingly good the Obama campaign was in terms of graphics and so on. There's two things I noticed about this Joe Biden campaign. Number one, his former boss doesn't seem to have endorsed him yet. And number two, his bus. You want to talk about taking a tip from the master. His bus has a slogan on the side and a slogan on the front. And that slogan is designed to show young Americans that Joe Biden is the guy for them. He's the future of this country. He can connect with the youth in a way that Donald Trump possibly cannot. And Joe Biden says on the side of his bus that there's no malarkey. So, Scott, the question I have for you is there in fact malarkey or is there not malarkey? I'd like you to take a quick kind of a round sort of look at Joe Biden's campaign, determine how much malarkey is in it, and then as a small favor, if you could explain to us what malarkey actually means, that'd also be highly appreciated.
Well, fortunately,
for our younger viewers, the ones under 90.
Because I think the Biden campaign understands that the word malarkey is not something that is currently used. So they wanted to make sure people had time to read it. And so that's why the front of the bus has hitched to it a 20 mule team that is actually towing that bus around Iowa and now in New Hampshire.
Bus broke down in Iowa, and they couldn't find anybody who could fix wagon wheels, so the thing was there for like forever.
That's right. This is Joe Biden's attempt to glom onto John McCain's Straight Talk Express. And that's the idea. You know that a politician is being honest with you when he has to make a public statement that he's being honest with you. So
that's right. You mean like honest Joe Biden?
That's the signal that you're about to hear some straight talk or something that contains no malarkey is when somebody announces up front. Just like you know that a joke is going to be funny when somebody announces that he's about to tell you a joke and that it's going to be funny.
Yep.
I had somebody said that to me the other day. They're like, "Hey, you'll think this is funny." I'm like, "Probably not." I think just
probably not. No.
On the face
Here
of
comes
it.
the joke.
So, yeah, malarkey is a word that I really haven't heard since I was actually raised by my grandparents, and my grandmother, Jessica McMenamin, comes from good Irish stock. And she was born in 1915, which would make her 105 years old this year. And that's, in her childhood, that word had some currency, but not so much today. You don't see a lot of hashtag malarkey out there. So, for some reason, BS is a shorter rendition of that.
in her childhood in 1910, she heard the word malarkey. She never used it. It was something her grandmother heard
That's right.
frequently. But yes, please.
Exactly. Anyway, it is kind of sad that what it says to me is that Joe Biden is either, number one, incapable of hiring good people, or number two, unwilling to listen to the counsel of his staff. Because if either one of those had been true, he would have hired somebody who was in charge of the branding of his campaign, who would never have come up with the No Malarkey Express bus. And, or if somebody had come up with it, somebody on his staff would have said, no, Joe, that's 106 years old. And he wouldn't have done it.
Let's go with something newer, like get on the trolley, or he's the bee's knees, or he's the cat's pajamas, and kind of try and push the message a little younger. Steve, we just saw this just recently. I don't know if you're aware of it, but the low voter turnout in Iowa. Remember, Iowa. The entire Democratic strategy is that the people will turn out in huge numbers to rid themselves from Orange Man Tyrant. The turnout in Iowa, apparently one of the few pieces of data that were made available somehow by somebody. Of course, Iowa is such a gigantic, enormously complicated state with so many hundreds of millions of people. It's hard to keep track of all the things that go on in Iowa. But we have a helpful piece of a clue for why so few people turned out in Iowa, which just as a second just appeared. It comes to us from our friends over at MSNBC and MSNBC's commentator, Zerlina Maxwell. And the reason that not many people came out in Iowa is because, and this is a direct quote, the Iowa Caucus is essentially the perfect example of systemic racism. 91% of the voters in Iowa are white. And the reason that they didn't come out is because white children, she says, unlike white children, minorities, quote, feel a sense of urgency because their kids aren't being put in cages. You see, unquote. So in other words, the reason that not many people showed up for the Iowa caucuses was because, unlike the rest of the country, these white people don't have their kids put in cages, so naturally they're a little more lackadaisical about things. And all I really wanted to get out of you on this was, you live in a relatively big city. I live in Los Angeles. I haven't noticed a particularly long line of traffic at the part in the freeway where all of us white supremacists slow down to look at the cages full of children of color. I find that, as a matter of fact, there was hardly any extra activity there whatsoever. What's it like in Colorado, Steve? Do you find that the walking tour of the white supremacist tour of the children of color in cages, do you find the attendance is down there, or do you find that it's more or less what it was in 2016?
Well, apparently we've got a real epidemic in this country of white people not caring much about white people. I just saw an item on Twitter or Facebook the other day that what's the white nationalist website? Stormfront, is it? I think that's the name. It's like the one serious.
Why are you asking us what the white nationalist website is?
Because you're online like I am. You pick things up. They're complaining that they're going to have to lay off everybody but like the founding guy because they couldn't raise any money. So white people can't get money out of white people. Iowa, white people won't turn out to vote for white people. It's just a damn shame what's happened to this whole thing. What an absolute crock. Children in cages.
Children in cages.
Yeah, it's absolute.
Like in the other 49 states.
BS. It's funny because when I didn't hear the whole quote. I just saw it in context, something about Iowa and systemic racism. My first thought was, did the white Democrats not run this year? What are we? I didn't understand where the racism was, but apparently it's all on the left because that's who voted on Monday night. That said, Bill, I hate to correct you, but some of your information is just a little out of date. Biden over the weekend, when he saw those poll numbers from that Des Moines Register poll that got spiked because it showed him doing so bad, he did actually have the bus repainted with an updated slogan. It says, "Hello, fellow kids."
Hello, fellow kids. Yeah. Oh, my God. Scotty, let's go back to you.
Please.
It's an embarrassment of riches. It really and truly is. we all know that Republicans are ignorant, knuckle-dragging savages with no access to communication, and that we listen to these echo chambers like Fox News and so on, and therefore all of the conservatives in the country are low-information voters. I was just wondering if you happened to see the video of the woman who went in the Iowa caucuses to vote for Pete Buttigieg and was shocked, I tell you, when she found out that Pete Buttigieg is gay. She wanted her vote back. Did you see that video?
I couldn't want to. I saw the headline, and there was this little part of me that thought, well, this could be an amusing way to pass 45 seconds. And I just could not muster the will to click on that link to see that. But it is comforting to know that the kind of people who turn out for the Iowa caucuses on the Democratic side are so well informed about the people that they intend to support,
and so prejudice free.
But
because once she discovered this shocking news, then she wanted her vote back.
Yes,
the woman who was working for the Buttigieg campaign was very, very extremely understanding,
gracious about it, yes,
and patient, and explained to her that. Ma'am, I'm sorry. And the woman said, "How he's married to a man. How did I not know this?" And she essentially said, "It's kind of the brand," but she didn't quite call it the brand. Well, but this was enough to deeply alarm this woman, who by the way said that, well, it's not in the Bible. And she said, well, Pete believes in the Bible. Well, and she says, well, it's not in the Bible. And then the Buttigieg campaign person helpfully pointed out that, well, ma'am, none of us were here when the Bible was written. So who can really say?
Well, that's because Joe Biden wasn't in the room. But
and as we all know, the Bible was written hundreds of years ago.
In old-timey language.
I did see a little blurb about it, although I did not see the video, but I saw a little blurb about it. And one of the things that the somewhat snarky news reporter who wrote this piece pointed out was, it's just trying to embarrass this person by basically saying, how did you not know this? They said that Mr. Buttigieg and his so-called husband had been on the cover of Time magazine. And I thought, well, no wonder nobody knows about it.
Stevie, let's go back to you one more time. Why don't we?
Okay.
Yeah. Gosh.
Oh, no.
Where to start? This is a program. It's a product launch. The Iowa caucuses have been what all of the rounds of these horrific debates have been leading up to. It is the big unveiling. Undoubtedly, we'll get some information later, but nevertheless, this, as I pointed out in my introduction, is maybe the greatest product launch failure of all time. Now, in one of our other jumble of shows, which just consists of nothing but sheer snark and outrageous laughter, this week, you pointed out that you're not a big believer in conspiracy theories, but that you think maybe Hillary Clinton, who, by the way,
maybe
the people that did the app used to work for Hillary Clinton. And if you ever thought that the Mao jacket was not an indication that Hillary Clinton was not in fact a Bond villain, you'll be pleased to know that the company that she hired in order to track this information so that she could win elections was called Shadow Inc., as Scott pointed out. But Shadow's not really it. Shadow's just a front. The company that's behind Shadow is called Acronym.
And they're all a front.
That's all
for
true,
Spectre.
by the way. I just want to. No, I'm serious about this.
Just the irony of writing out the word acronym, I think, is great. But go ahead.
That's exactly right. So when we started this little laugh fest this morning, I said that the results in Iowa did not commit suicide. And then you sharpened that up by saying Epstein did not commit suicide.
But I can't take credit for it. I read that online somewhere.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, but I am serious about one thing. If you want to assume that I'm not joking about this now. If you look at the Epstein thing and you think, how could something that flagrant happen? And you realize that the only answer is that if he had not hung himself, what would have come out would have been worse. In other words, this clear, unbelievable act of political murder on this country is the only thing that's better than him actually telling the truth. Right? You with me so far?
Yes.
Is it possible? Is it possible, do you think, that the reason we have not heard the results from Iowa is because Bernie Sanders blew the thing out?
I do believe that.
And that the only thing worse than admitting that Bernie Sanders blew it out with a win was to say, we don't know, the app didn't function. We don't know who won. We'll probably never know.
Yeah, as we're taping this, it is about 3:51 Eastern time on Tuesday, and the Democrats are supposed to release partial results in about an hour and 9 minutes from Iowa. So, 18 hours, 17 hours late, whatever that is. What's interesting is they're dribbling it out. They're saying they're going to release a majority of results, but they don't say what a majority is. Do they mean a majority of the vote totals, or do they mean a majority of the precincts? Because some of these precincts, there are almost 1,700 of them across Iowa's 99 counties. Some of them are tiny. 8 guys show up in this one precinct to vote, and 800 show up in this much bigger precinct to vote. And maybe they're cherry picking. This is why it's taking so long. They could have tabulated this and had it out this morning. It may be taking so long because they're cherry picking the results to put the best possible spin on it, i.e., to bring down Sanders and then to boost Biden or whatever, so they can make it appear to be much less bad than it actually is. And then hopefully they can hopefully for them, they can keep drawing this out past New Hampshire, cut Bernie's momentum, boost Joe, but I don't think it's going to work. I mean, if I'm a Bernie bro, but if I were a Bernie bro after having gotten burned by Hillary in 2016, man, if they don't
burned,
if they don't know the results,
they felt the burn all right.
If they don't know or trust the results from Iowa before New Hampshire, I think they're just going to burn the place down, Bill. It's going to be epic. The more the Democrats tried to, here's the thing. It used to be called mental illness. Used to be called alienation. You were alienated from your true self, and the reason why the Democrats are so psychotic is they are alienated from their true selves. They're a bunch of damn communists, Trotskyites, Bolsheviks, and all the rest, just different wings of the same
billionaires,
god awful communist crap that we thought we'd put in the ash heap of history. And they can't admit that. They have to hide it. So they have become alienated from themselves. And so the result is that in public, it appears to be a sort of psychosis where things blow up in Iowa and all the rest. And it couldn't be happening to a nicer bunch of evil statists.
Just a quick follow-up for you, Steve.
Sure.
Because the last time that I've seen political news, election results, delayed like this was on the night of the 1st November in 2016 when John Podesta came out and said to the Hillary Clinton supporters that the votes had not been counted yet. Please go home and get some sleep, and we'll continue the fight in the morning. Does that give you any indication that maybe what's trying to happen here is some kind of a buffering effect, maybe some kind of a, if we break the bad news over the course of 3 days, maybe it won't seem quite so bad?
Apparently I said it badly because I thought that's what I was trying to say with the dragging out through New Hampshire.
But no, it's exactly why I asked you the follow-up, because that's precisely what Hillary Clinton did. She could not admit that she lost, couldn't admit it, left her supporters out in the cold, and then said, "Don't worry, tomorrow we'll come back and we'll give you the results." And
the only result was that Michigan was so close that the results weren't known for 2 or 3 weeks after the election. But Trump, this is so shocking to say, Trump didn't need Michigan to win. A Republican didn't need Michigan to win, and he got it anyway. They were just Hillary was sedated. We all know it.
So we sedated is a medical term for what she really was, but yeah, sure. Let's go with sedated. Yeah. Look, folks, we're actually, all of us are just kind of giddy over this because having watched this nightmare of destruction of the American system with the Kavanaugh thing, and then of course the impeachment thing, what we find now is that the Democrats who have been spending all of this time and effort setting up their candidates, which we know were incredibly weak, you start to ask yourself, my God, what could possibly be weaker than these three people? And it turns out the unveiling of them will be weaker than the three candidates will be. So that's given us a source of some satisfaction. We know that Donald Trump, as we record this, Donald Trump will have his State of the Union speech tonight, and I expect he'll have a thing or two to say about that that's rather on the sharp end. Looking forward to that. And then again, this is being recorded on Tuesday, but it looks like on Wednesday morning, the impeachment vote will happen, and it will go out not with a bang or even with a whimper. It'll simply go out. The cameras will not be recording the whimper. The news will have moved elsewhere. So things are looking kind of interesting. But here's what factually happened, and despite all the joking around and jocularity and all the rest of it, this is what actually happened, and I think this is indisputable. I'm not talking about why the results didn't come in. I have no idea why the results didn't come in. I got some guesses, but it doesn't matter. That's the point. It doesn't matter. The Iowa Caucus is the launching pad for campaigns. It's a chance for a front runner to stay the front runner. It's a front for a person who's maybe trailing to suddenly break out and be taken seriously. And no matter what happens, no matter who actually did, whether Bernie blew the results out, whether Joe Biden had a commanding lead, whether Pete Buttigieg, let's say, came in second with a big, strong second and so on, it doesn't matter anymore. The boost is gone. And the boost is gone because the event is gone. All we have now when we talk about the Iowa caucus is the catastrophe of the caucus. And what used to be like, well, Pete Buttigieg is off to a great start or off to a terrible start, or Bernie blew the crowd away, or Bernie failed to blow the crowd away. All of that stuff is gone now. All of the advantages of the starting block are wrecked. And as I said, it is a product reveal. It's like getting up and having Steve Jobs talk about presenting, here is the Apple iPhone, and then turns out that the projector is burned out and his mic's not working, and then the curtain falls on him, and then the theater catches fire. That's what people will be talking about, and that's what's happened here. So I think the simple, clearest lesson that everybody seems to be taking out of this, I mean everybody, is that these are the people that want to run the country. These are the people that talk about being the party of technology, and we're the party of science, and we're the party of this, and give it to the government and put it in committees, and we can handle, we do government, is what the Democrats are constantly saying. To which I reply, yes, you do. And as far as apps are concerned, I've got one right here. I've been working on this. It's an experimental app for voting for the iPhone, and I guess they didn't go with this, but I just wanted to point it out to you because I put a lot of work in it. Here it is. This is the app that I actually had in mind for the election results. You can see how complicated it is. It's an experimental design. I've been working on it for 8 or 10 years, but this is basically what I think we should be using going forward if we're going to be having apps for future upcoming elections. How about we just put these things on paper ballots and then we count them? And if it turns out that means it's going to be an hour later than usual, probably better to have it an hour later than to not have it at all, right? I'm sure it was just an accident, and the country's in the very best of hands. It's been so hard to be a conservative for so long, being on the side of the angels and all. And now all of a sudden it's just grand. It's just really, really, really good. I'm sure things will change by next week, but if things keep going the way they're going to get even better. For Steve Green and Scott Ott, I'm Bill Whittle. This show's made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com, and we love to have you if you're one of them. If you like looking at politics seriously, that's great. If you like looking at politics unseriously, even better. We'll see you next week on Right Angle.